Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use. This is 5 Live Sport.
5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome from a very chilly Montreal. Montreal being, of course, the home of this weekend's Canadian Grand Prix, a French-speaking city, and we are on a man-made island in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway. My name is Tom Clarkson and I'm joined, as ever, by the BBC 5 Live F1 commentator Jack Nicholls, and we have a very special guest with us. We have former F1 driver, former winner of Le Mans, president of the BRDC. I could go on, but Derek Warwick, thank you very much for joining us, boys.
My pleasure.
Now, let's start by this preview by actually looking back. There seems to be so much to discuss from what happened in Monaco last time out. Jack, give us a little reminder of what happened in that race.
Well, I'll try and be brief, but it was pretty busy out there, wasn't it? Lewis Hamilton started third on the grid. Daniel Ricciardo took a brilliant pole position, his first pole position in Formula One, sprinted away up at the front, and it looked like it was his race to lose, really. Hamilton tried something a little bit different, and then Red Bull consequently lost the race for Ricciardo. He came into the pits, they made a late decision on what compound of tyre to use, and all the tyres were out the back, and they had to get everybody out of the way and try and get the tyres on the car as quickly as possible. So when Ricciardo pulled in, no tyres waiting for him. That brought him out behind Hamilton, and then, you know, around the streets of Monaco, that's job done, really. So Hamilton's first victory of the season.
Now, Derek, with your racing driver hat on, is Dan Ricciardo right to feel so aggrieved? He couldn't talk to the team after the race, he didn't speak to them for a couple of days. What was your assessment of what went on with him in Monaco?
I think he had every right. I would be massively disappointed with the team. You got to remember that, first of all, he's got Verstappen come into the team in a big blaze of glory, and really he's sort of been made not second fiddle, but you know, all the pressure's been on him to outperform Verstappen, this young kid coming into Formula One or coming back into Red Bull. I think he was disappointed after Barcelona. Had he been on a two-stop the same as Verstappen, for sure he'd have won that race because he was running in front of Verstappen at the time. So he feels he's already lost one Grand Prix. And then he come to Monaco. His lap in qualifying was just absolutely stunning. I mean, it's one of the best qualifying laps I've ever seen. And he had everything there to win the race. And for him to come in and not have the tyres ready, you know, it's bad form really. And he obviously felt very disappointed. And I think he summed it up afterwards that they're not Mercedes. You know, Mercedes can come to every Grand Prix and expect to win. Red Bull are not in that position yet, and he feels that he personally has lost two Grand Prix in Barcelona and Monaco, and coupled with the fact that everybody wants to win Monaco, and have it cruelly taken away from him. I think he should be bitterly disappointed. Not as disappointed I would have been, that's for sure.
Now, here's the thing. Would you, if you were Dan Ricciardo, be looking elsewhere for the future, or do you think he should stay at Red Bull?
I think it's a blip. I don't know how he feels within the team. I think he feels pretty special. I think the Verstappen thing is probably upsetting his mind a little bit because, you know, he's the great white hope at the moment. And you know, I think if you go around the Grand Prix paddock and say, right, let's put a top six together, for sure, Daniel will be in that top six. You know, if not up there in the top 4 or 5. So, you know, he deserves to be wherever he wants to be. Does he want to be teammates with Vettel again in a Vettel Ferrari team? I don't know. Or does he want to be number one at Red Bull? Well, I think that might not happen either because Verstappen for sure is going to get better and better. He made a lot of mistakes at Monaco, but he will learn from that. He's something pretty special, and he will learn from that. So I think Daniel's got a bit of a quandary really, whether to stay, whether to go. Deep down, does everybody want to drive for Ferrari? Yes, but I think it's more than that. It's who has got the best chance of winning the World Championship for Daniel next year. I think that's the decision he has to make.
Jack, what's your assessment? Can he win the World Championship with Red Bull next year?
I think it depends obviously a lot on the Renault engine, but I think they have proven that they have good capability within that engine because, you know, when Verstappen was leading in Barcelona, we all sort of thought, well, he's got the Renault engine, the Ferrari behind of Kimi Raikkonen's got the Ferrari engine, and he should be able to get past. But to be honest, Raikkonen couldn't get near. Okay, it was because the Red Bull was great coming out of the final corners, but nevertheless, the engine disparity is not as big as it has been over the past couple of years, or not as big as if you had a Honda in the back of it, for example. So Red Bull have proven that they can win 4 world championships in a row. So I think to jump ship after a bit of a oops, we lost the tyres, it might be a bit premature.
Okay, well, let's hear what Daniel had to say when we caught up with him earlier.
You know, I definitely still carry that fire in me, but I'll use it, you know, to my advantage, I think. And yeah, it was a tough one to take, and a bit like Barcelona, it took some time to get over it, I guess. But then again, what's done is done, and my dad used to say, if you look back too far, you get a sore neck. So you know, I'm definitely looking forward now, and I think it was really good as well for them to see how much I want this. You know, they know me better than a lot of people. They see me behind the scenes, but the way I felt afterwards, they felt that, and I think they realised that, you know, it's not just about standing there on the podium and you know, being the loved guy on that day and getting all the attention. It's that real desire to, you know, I'm here for a purpose, and I want to win. I want to win championships, and I think that'll now go a long way with them, and it'll be good for us.
How have they explained what happened in Monaco in particular?
I mean, yeah, I've had some lengthy phone calls with. I spoke to Christian, and then you know, quite in detail with my engineer after a few days, because he'd been in the factory and explained the processes and that. So it was, you know, with the second pit stop, it was a bit of a reaction to what Lewis had done with his tyres, and they decided then to change the compound to try and respond to him, and that was then all getting chaotic, and the compound they wanted weren't basically there at the front and ready to go. So it was just I guess a rushed decision when, yeah, I guess it didn't need to be, and of all places, Monaco is not the place to make those rush decisions. But they've said, you know, they've done some stuff now with some software and anything, you know, with strategy, and if they were to make, let's say, a late decision like that again, it's basically they'll get an indication straight away if it can be done or not, you know. So they'll get a green light or a red light saying it's not going to work or it will. So there was lengthy conversations, and yeah, it's all been addressed, and it's been reassured that if we're in that position again, it won't happen.
Well, if you're in that position this weekend, it would mean that you're challenging Mercedes again. Do you think you can do that round what is predominantly a power track here in Montreal?
Yeah, it's sure it's going to be more difficult to be in that position this weekend, but at the same time, I think we can be close enough to maybe put some pressure on them in the race. Let's see. I'm ready. I'm definitely ready to go. I don't think they're going to be a second in front of the field here. You know, I think, and if Ferrari have some updates, then both us, you know, and them should be, I would say, within half a second. And then in the race, you never know what can happen. So ready to go. Right now, I'm freezing, but once I get my race suit on, I'll be ready.
So he's hoping for a repeat of his maiden F1 win back here in 2014, and another man hoping for a good result this weekend is Nico Rosberg. Now, he didn't turn up in Monaco. He finished 7th. Derek Warwick, how did you assess the performance of Rosberg last time out?
Poor. You know, I mean, he lost confidence in the car. He obviously had a few, I suspect, near misses, let the tyres cool down too much, let the brakes cool down too much. And we all know with these tyres and brakes, you know, as soon as they go off the temperature band, you really are, you know, a passenger. And I think it was pretty disappointing the way he drove. You know, even on that last lap, last corner, letting Hülkenberg take him going to the line when we had a little bit of rain. I think Monaco was massive for the championship, personally. Massive for Lewis. You know, I think Lewis has turned the tide. He took some valuable points off of Nico there, and I think that's given him a big push for the championship. I suspect that we are now going to see a different Lewis. I know he's been pretty laid back all year, but he's going to be pretty focused now for the rest of the year. And I'd be surprised if Lewis Hamilton doesn't win the Canadian Grand Prix.
I was certainly surprised when Nico Rosberg let Hamilton past in Monaco. Team's orders. Jack, were you surprised?
I think I was, especially when I think back to the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2014, where I can't remember which way around it was, but one of them was told to let the other through, and they didn't, and subsequently there was a big sort of fallout after that. But that's the kind of ruthlessness it seems to me you need to win a championship. And I mean, well, Derek, maybe this is a good question to you. We hear about champions drives, some races you'll see it and you'll go, oh, that was a champions drive. You think of Hamilton at Silverstone in the rain a couple of years ago, you go, that was a champions drive. Was Monaco the opposite of that for Rosberg? Is that the kind of race where you go, actually, he couldn't get it done, he let his teammate pass without a fight, that's why he's not a world champion?
I think there's two things there. First of all, I thought Barcelona, fair play to Rosberg. He's showing Hamilton that he's not going to be a pushover, even if it means crashing. So I thought, he's toughened up. He needed to toughen up. He's given away to Lewis too many times. But then when I think about Monaco, would Lewis have let Nico by if the roles were reserved to that? Absolutely not. He would have pulled the plug and he would have not heard any communications at all. So I think it shows the difference between somebody that wants to win it and somebody that has to win it, is desperate to win it. And that's the difference between Lewis and Nico. We've said it for the last 3 or 4 years, and I think Monaco proved it.
Your Honour, to come down in defence of Nico Rosberg for a second, he out-qualified Lewis Hamilton in Monaco, and it seems to me that every driver has a bad race. Hungary last year was Lewis Hamilton's bad race. This was Rosberg's. He can bounce back.
Yeah, but then Lewis did have a fuel pressure problem at the time, and he didn't have the full engine for that qualifying lap. No, look, take nothing away from Nico. He's a worthy champion. He's a great driver. He's won some great races. Is he Lewis Hamilton? No. Does he deserve to win one world championship? Probably yes. But it's not about who's deserving. It's who wants it more. And you have to say people like Lewis, Alonso, Vettel, Schumacher, and I can go on, they want it so badly that they will do whatever it takes to win a Grand Prix or the World Championship. And I don't think that Nico's quite that aggressive, or it's not in his DNA. I always remember at Monaco last year when he went down the escape road. It's not in Nico's DNA to lie or to pull a flanker or to try and cheat. He just wouldn't do it that way. And I can't say the same for Vettel, for Hamilton, for Schumacher and people like that. And that's just the difference. It's 0.5%, but it's the difference.
What was Derek Warwick like as a driver?
He was horrible. I wouldn't want to trust him, I tell you.
Well, look, let's just see how much Nico Rosberg wants to win the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend.
It was a bad day in the office. Everything came together, all the bad stuff, and especially in Monaco. When you start having a few issues here and there, it sort of spirals downwards, and Monaco is so unforgiving that then you just get that massively bad result. And that's what happened. And we've analysed it, gone through it, understood it, most of the stuff, and that's it. Now it's gone, and I'm feeling good. I'm here. I have a great car, and looking forward to this race weekend.
So what of Lewis Hamilton? Of course, Jack alluded to it earlier. His first win for 7 months in Monaco. Jack, you've been watching him very closely this year. Do you think Lewis proved last weekend that he's lost none of his speed?
I don't think he ever really had to prove it, and that's been the interesting thing with Lewis this year. Is previously when things have gone bad from if the car's been slow or he hasn't been driving maybe to the best of his abilities, he can end up being a bit grumpy. And Damon Hill came out in the week and said that he's got to stop being so sulky. But I haven't seen that side to Hamilton really, because he knows it's not really been his fault. Okay, a couple of bad starts with these new clutch systems, you could say maybe that was his fault, but when the car lets him down in qualifying, there's nothing he can do. So he knows the pace is there. And when we were speaking to him in the pen earlier on, one journalist asked, is it important for you to beat Nico this weekend? Is that the most important thing? He said, no, the most important thing is the car doesn't let me down. And that's his point of view, is that if my car works, I will win. That's his mindset, and I think that's that shows that he's lost none of his desire.
Derek, does he have an Achilles heel, or do you think he is the best driver in Formula One at the minute?
If I had a Grand Prix team today, I would 100% have Lewis Hamilton driving my car. The only problem with Lewis comes a little bit of baggage. You know, he's not the most sporting person out there, but we've seen a massive change in his personality this year. I don't know what's happened. Whereas before he was that sulky person, but I think now he is sort of mellowed a little bit. I don't know whether it's the third World Championship or whether his mum's talked to him and said, look, you know, you're a bit Marmite, you know, there's too many people either like you or hate you. He seems a little bit more relaxed. Has he lost any of his speed? Absolutely not. Has he lost any of his desire to win the fourth World Championship? No, I agree. He's had too many car failures or letdowns, if you like, and that's put him in bad positions. And you are right, he has made a few mistakes, which is uncharacteristic of Lewis with his starts. So, you know, maybe he needs to, I don't know, focus a little bit more and not play around quite so much. I don't know. It seems to suit him. He's in a good place at the moment, and what a great champion he is.
I mean, he's been tweeting this week lots of pictures of him with Justin Bieber. He's been mucking around on motorbikes and all sorts. How exhausting is a lifestyle like that? Do we make too much of it? If you were his team boss, would you try and rein him in a bit?
At your peril, I think. You know, I think he's his own man. He wants to do whatever he wants to do. Is it right to be flying halfway around the world 3 times before a Grand Prix and going to nightclubs with Justin Bieber and things like that? I think not. But it's each to their own. You know, it wouldn't have suited Michael Schumacher. It wouldn't have suited Sebastian Vettel. But he seems to suit him. Has it taken that little edge off of him? I worry that it has. And I'm not yet convinced either way. So it suits his lifestyle.
Suits his lifestyle. Would it suit your lifestyle, Jack?
It is my lifestyle. That's the problem. Derek was said, if you had Hamilton in the car, the baggage that comes with that is a big thing, and the baggage would be, I think contractually, you have to have Justin Bieber as his teammate. So that's the biggest problem.
Fortunately for him, he's got Nico Rosberg. Let's now get Lewis's thoughts.
Of course, when you look at the calendar, you look at some races which you know have been stronger for you, and there's other races you know that are ones that you have to work even more or work a little bit harder at because they're not particularly your most strongest races. So, and it is good coming here, obviously from Monaco, from a win, knowing that here is generally a strong race for me. So, but otherwise, there's so many different elements that come into play, so it doesn't really change a lot.
And what of Ferrari? Can you see them challenging Mercedes or Red Bull this weekend?
Well, there's a lot of teams out there this weekend that have got upgrades. You got 4 Renault engine cars with upgrades. You got Ferraris with upgrades. You got Honda with upgrades. So it's all got to sort of level itself off, I suspect. They need to step up a little bit, to be honest. They're underperforming. And I think even Vettel have said, don't compare last year to this year, but we have to, because that's all we can compare. They have underperformed this year. You know, Sebastian's had a couple of poor races, and they've had some failures. So, you know, they do need to step up a bit. They are pushing Mercedes more than anybody else has for a long time, which is showing a few little creaks in Mercedes as well. We all want Ferrari to win. You know, we need Ferrari to win. You know, they are the history of Formula One. You know, if you go to any circuit in the world or watch any circuit in the world, you know, there's thousands and thousands of Ferrari fans. So we do need them at the front before too long, because it's been a long time now since they've been world champion.
And there are a lot of questions about personnel. Jack, just before we started recording this, a story broke about Kimi Raikkonen's future. Can you just share with us what that is?
Well, basically, Maurizio Arrivabene, the team principal of Ferrari, has said, you know, I'm not going to tell you who our drivers are for next season, but we're very happy with what we have right now, and why would we want that to change? So that suggests to me that, and to a lot of people, that Kimi Raikkonen will remain at Ferrari, which, you know, from my personal point of view, is absolutely nuts. Because okay, you don't, yeah, exactly. Because I accept that, you know, when you had the Vettel and Ricciardo, they were very evenly matched at Red Bull, and Vettel didn't like that. Okay, so fine, have a teammate that's a little bit, but you could get such a good, cheap teammate, and you're building for the future as well.
Who would you put in the Ferrari?
I mean, even a Grosjean or someone like that. I think there are so many good options out there, rather than paying, you know, eye-watering figures to a man that you used to pay eye-watering figures for before you paid eye-watering figures to sack him. and then have hired him back again, and has underperformed for a couple of years. And you know what I mean? It just I don't understand it. And Ferrari have always been conservative. There was some stat that they haven't given a debut to a Formula One driver since the 1960s, but there are better options, aren't there, than Kimi Raikkonen, Derek?
I think there is. Personally, I think Formula One will miss Kimi Raikkonen because he is a character. He's the only person that says nothing and he's still a character, so it's pretty interesting. No, I think he's made too many mistakes. Monaco was a disaster for him, and it's time we put somebody else in the car. Give somebody, some young up-and-coming driver, a chance in a Ferrari. We haven't seen it for a long time. We know the team is really revolving around Sebastian, and so it should. 4 times world champion. But somebody else deserves a chance. And Grosjean, yes. Ricciardo, yes. Someone like that. I don't think you can bring somebody from Formula 3 or GP2 or GP3. I think that's a step too far. But there are a lot of good drivers out there.
Well, we're sat in the Williams hospitality area. About 5 metres away from us, Valtteri Bottas is doing an interview with, I think, Finnish television. He was linked to the team a lot last year. Do you think they're going to look at him again?
I think...
Ferrari, linked to Ferrari, I should say.
I know. I think he's... Personally, I think he's underperformed. This last half a season, he's underperformed against Felipe. I think he really has. He was on a massive uphill climb, and for sure he deserved a place at Ferrari, I think, at the end of last year. He needs to get back that bit of confidence, that little bit of something extra that he had last year that he seems to have lost. Would I put him in the car now? No, I probably wouldn't, actually. I'd put Grosjean. I think it's a good choice. Ricciardo, if you could get him.
But is Grosjean actually better than Raikkonen?
I think he'd make less mistakes. Kimi seems to be making too many mistakes for a great team like Ferrari. Yeah, but if he was in Renault or Toro Rosso or someone like that, you'd put Kimi in there all day long. But he's at Ferrari. Ferrari are expected to win races. They're expected to win championships. And does he look like a world champion? Does he look like he's going to win the next 3 races? No, he doesn't. You're going to bet on Sebastian every time. So doesn't that tell you that you should put somebody in there that's going to accumulate points, support Sebastian, because that's how they've set the team up.
And my question to you, Jack, is Vettel as good as we all think he is?
Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? And that's the great thing with Formula One, is that you can have drivers race against each other, and someone looks amazing, and then actually, well, a good example was Michael Schumacher when he came back and he was with Mercedes and he was pretty evenly matched with Nico Rosberg, and everyone was like, oh, okay, Schumacher's lost it because he's only as good as Rosberg. Hamilton comes into the team, and actually it's pretty tough for him, and everybody then reassesses Schumacher's performance from the previous couple of years. I think Vettel is world class. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think Ferrari, it's something bizarre is going on at Ferrari, engineering wise this season, because they always seem to have the pace until Q3. And Vettel said it after the third part of qualifying in Monaco. He said the car was just different. There was just no pace. And I don't think that's Vettel, because Vettel has proved a million times how good he is at qualifying. He's never won a race from outside the top 3, and he's won a lot of Grand Prix. So that proves his pace. And to me, I think he is. I think he's just as good, but I think he'll be starting to get frustrated.
I think he will be. But look, there's one last story doing the rounds on the eve of the Canadian Grand Prix here in Montreal, and that revolves around the future of Jenson Button. Derek, should he stay or should he go?
With my Silverstone hat on and my BIDC hat on, I hope he stays. He's a massive pull to my crowd at Silverstone, and I really need him there. But my heart says, it's time now for him to move on and really put somebody else in the car. And obviously their reserve driver, Stoffel van Dorn, I think is someone special. He might not be a Verstappen, but he's very, very close. He's extraordinary and he deserves a chance. But then you look at the performance of Jenson against Alonso, and he's in the top 3 of most of our polls. He's done very good. You know, he's been extraordinary this year. You know, so is he ready to stop? I don't know. He looks like he's got some fire in his belly. He's as quick as Alonso most of the time, and he deserves to stay there. But I suppose because he's a little bit older than most, we all feel it's time to move on, and that might be a bit unfair.
Well, if he is squeezed out of McLaren, Jack, do you think he's got any other options in Formula 1?
Possibly. We are at the moment we're sat in the Williams motorhome, and which is a scene of another racing driver who's getting on a little bit in the terms of Felipe Massa. So there are rumours flying around that could be a possibility, but I think his options are going to be quite limited. Whether he'd want to go and do Le Mans and the World Endurance Championship like Mark Webber has done and other ex-F1 drivers, I don't quite know, to be honest with you, because to me it seems like winning Formula 1 is having been there and done that already. Webber never became world champion in Formula 1, and therefore I think you end up with something still in you to prove. I think it's very rare to see a world champion move on to other forms of motorsport. So it could be there are other options, but the most likely option I think is Top Gear, by the sounds of it.
Well, Jenson was certainly being very coy when we caught up with him earlier.
I haven't thought about it. I keep getting asked the question. It's earlier every year. Living in the moment, and.
But you're still loving being a Formula 1 driver. Do you want to continue?
At this moment in time, I'm loving it. Yes. The second part of your question, I can't answer.
Well, all that remains to be said now is, Derek Warwick, thank you very much for your time. Just before you go, have you flogged your racetrack yet?
No, we haven't. No, but it's good to say that we've got a great Grand Prix in front of us. The British Grand Prix is going to be our record year. We're looking
record crowd. Such interesting.
Yeah. We're looking at something like 150,000 people on Sunday. So where everybody else is losing spectators, we're gaining them, which is great. We've got some great offers at the moment where you can text in and actually win paddock passes to Paddock Club and to the paddock where you can be with a Formula 1 team. So we've got a lot of offers at the moment. It's never been brighter and better than what it is at Silverstone at the moment. There's a lot of confusion with the deal that we're trying to do at the moment, but that aside, the Grand Prix is looking great.
It's going to be a great festival of British motorsport. Thank you to Jack Nicholls. We have the on-track action coming up. We've got every session, qualifying and the race, live across the BBC Sport network. This has been a USP content production for BBC Radio 5 Live.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.